Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the California State Library's Government Publications section for a presentation on federal government information, how to locate and access online resources. My name is Bradley Siebold, and I'm one of the presenters of this afternoon's event. I am also joined by my colleague, Emily Mackinson. We are both librarians in the Government Publications section of the California State Library. We also have our moderator for this afternoon, Vanessa Chrisman, who is the principal librarian for the Government Publications section and the Whitkin State Law Library. Vanessa will be monitoring our Q&A section throughout the program for any questions you may have for us, and she will read your questions during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. The California State Library is excited to talk to you about federal government information. Maybe you don't think about it on a daily basis, or maybe you do based on our rapid news cycle. But either way, we are here to help you. In today's webinar, we will take you through the processes of how to access and locate current and historic federal government information. This presentation will cover a lot of material, but there may have been recent news events that we do not cover in this presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in our Q&A section. So if you have any questions, please let us know. This presentation will be recorded and made available in the coming days. Live transcription is enabled, so if you'd like to see captions, click the CC icon to show subtitles. If you run into any technical difficulties during the presentation, please put those in the Q&A box and we will try and help you if we can. Finally, we have added links related to the California State Library and the Government Publications section. Also, for any state employees without a library card, please consider applying for one through the posted online application link. So, I am a senior librarian in the Government Publications section with over a dozen years of experience working with both government documents and law materials. Prior to working for the California State Library, I worked as a law librarian in state government. I enjoy serving as the regional librarian for the Federal Depository Library Program in California, and also working with patrons on their research questions. We are also joined by Emily Mackinson, who is a librarian in the Government Publications section, and also serves as the representative for the Patent and Trademark Resource Center. Prior to joining the California State Library, she worked at public libraries in the Bay Area and for various state agencies.
Good afternoon, and welcome to this webinar on locating and accessing federal government information online. My name is Emily Mackinson, and I'm a librarian here at the California State Library. As my colleague Bradley mentioned earlier in the opening, we work in the Government Publications section, specifically working with federal documents and federal government information. Today, we will be discussing government information, sharing some resources for accessing government information online, and demonstrating how you can search for information on government websites that may have been removed or changed. But first, what is government information? What is it used for, and why is it important to have access to it? Government information is information that is created, disseminated, compiled, or published by government agencies or government employees in the course of their work. Government information can be published in print, microform, or electronic formats. Examples of government documents include books, reports, data and statistics, congressional hearings, periodicals, census results, maps, posters, pamphlets, websites, and more. Government information can be produced by federal, state, or local agencies. In this webinar, we are focusing primarily on federal government information, but some of the resources we are looking at today also include state and local documents, or have counterparts for state and local information that can be accessed using the same methods, principles, and strategies. Government information can cover a wide variety of subjects, including art, business, culture, economics, education, the environment, foreign relations, health, laws and regulation, science, technology, and more. And because government information covers such a breadth of topics, it can be a useful resource for many different types of research. We have many California state workers joining us in this webinar today. Maybe some of you are working on developing policies and programs for the state of California and its residents. What policies or programs has the federal government administered in the past? How were they implemented? And what data is available on their success? What policies and programs are federal government agencies operating currently? Maybe you work in a research-related field. What research can government agencies and contractors what research have government agencies and contractors produced on agricultural techniques, cancer, the environment, education? Even if you are not involved in government work, government information can be useful. Perhaps you are writing a book, nonfiction, or even historical fiction. Government documents provide important historical facts and insight on historical perspectives for events in United States history. How did the government and the public react to a historical event, a government program, or changing laws and policies at the time they occurred? How did these perspectives change or not change over the decades? Or maybe you just want to know what the federal government is prioritizing. What current health guidelines are being recommended? How were federal tax dollars spent in recent years? What potential new laws is Congress trying to pass? Access to government information supports transparency, which is essential to fostering trust among the people and promoting accountability in a democratic system. It is your right as a citizen to have the ability to know what your government is saying and doing. Access to government information helps citizens remain informed and to participate in civic engagement. Of course, not all government documents are published or are widely distributed, and there are some limitations for information that is confidential or related to matters of public safety and security. So how can you exercise your right to access published government information? In 1813, Congress first created the Federal Depository Library Program, or FDLP for short, to distribute certain government publications to libraries outside of the federal government. The Printing Act of 1895 further established the role of the Government Printing Office, or GPO, now called the Government Publishing Office, in distributing government information for public access. It was at this time in 1895 that the California State Library became a federal depository library. The Depository Library Act of 1962 introduced additional changes, including creating a system of regional depository libraries, typically one per state. The California State Library became and remains the regional depository library for the state of California. The role of a regional library is to collect and retain all documents distributed by the Government Publishing Office. This differs from selective FDLP libraries, which are allowed to select the types of government documents in their collections and are not required to retain them indefinitely. They typically have smaller collections that are more tailored to the needs of their community and the patrons they serve. California has over 70 selective libraries within public and academic libraries throughout the state. The Federal Depository Library Program continues to evolve. In the past several decades, as internet access has become more standard, more government information has begun to be distributed online in the form of downloadable files, interactive databases, and websites. In 2024, the FDLP announced a transition to distribute government publications primarily online. This change is in part due to concerns about limited shelving space in libraries. One benefit of more government information being published online is that you no longer have to visit specific libraries in person to access government documents. You can access a lot of government information from anywhere that you have internet access, your office, a coffee shop, your home, or even your smartphone. So today, we are going to share with you some of the best resources for accessing government information online, as well as show you how you can look for information that may have been removed from websites and track changes. And at the end of the talk, we will talk about who you can contact if you need additional assistance in locating or accessing government information. So I will now turn things back over to Bradley, who will tell you about some of the most useful resources for online federal government information.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. Let me just put on some annotations right now so we can review some websites together. So, yeah, thank you. How can I pass up the chance to show off the California State Library online catalog? So let us jump right into conducting a search by visiting library.ca.gov, then selecting Online Catalog. Let us say we are interested in early California war claims, especially from the Mexican-American War of 1846 to 1848. We can conduct a basic search right here on our catalog. You can see with this keyword search, over 1,000 results are returned. We can refine our search with our facets on the left-hand column. Let us say that we are only interested in physical government documents from the state of California and/or the federal government. We can select the library and then select Government Publications section. This refines our results and narrows the number of results to 16. So let us say that I'm only interested in finding what is available online, though. So we can return to our original search and we can select Available Online. So the second result looks very interesting. So let's take a look at it. After clicking on the title, I see an Available Online link, which I will click, and then I will click on View Full Text Availability. So right now, we can pull up the full document, and it takes me directly to the document on govinfo.gov, a federal website. So let's remember that for later. So we were able to complete a search on our catalog. We were able to filter our results, and we were able to view a document in full text. Our catalog also searches keywords of available integrated databases as seen from the search bar. So we're searching our library catalog, databases, and also our picture catalog all at once. We can also see what kind of online databases or online resources are available. So we can click on the homepage and go to Online Resources, and then we can select our category, Government, and then click on Refine Results. So we're getting 42 results, or the answer to everything, being returned. So some of these databases are limited to state employees, as you can see here, or available physically in the library. If you're not a state employee, most of our online government resources are available to you, as seen by these links here. So also I would be remiss in not showing you what is our Rosetta Digital Repository. that's accessible from our online catalog. So we can take a look at that through our collection discovery here. And then selecting federal government documents. Our collection includes historic print or microfiche documents that have been scanned at preservation levels, as well as born digital items. These documents are hosted independently on California State Library servers. So we can browse our collection and maybe find an article or document of interest. So let's say this book right here is of interest to us. The administrative highlights of the WRA program, or the War Relocation Authority program. So I can scroll down and I can see it's available on our Rosetta repository. So this might take a few seconds to load because it's being saved on our servers at a preservation level quality. But we can take a look and see on the right-hand column is some descriptive information taken from the bibliographic record. So what's nice about this is that we can search within the document itself. Here, using our search term, we can also download the full document using this icon right here to peruse at will. But let us return to our original search here. California war claims. You know, we had some good results, but maybe I would like to double check my search against another catalog. We can continue that search on the CGP, or the Catalog of Government Publications. The CGP is a service of the Superintendent of Documents of the Government Publishing Office. You can also use the new discover.gpo.gov service right here. So we can conduct our search, again, for California war claims. We can see that we're getting 22 results with that search, and the default sorting method is by most recent first. So we can change that because we're interested in early California history. So I can change that to year ascending title here. And we can see that the second result here looks like it might be the same document that we found in the California State Library catalog. So what we have here is a PURL. And a PURL is a permanent uniform resource locator, or permanent URL. So what's nice about that is that this can redirect to the document itself if the site is hosted or changes. So although there might be good benefits of this, sometimes it doesn't let you see the full URL because it's being changed in this manner. But we can take a look and we can see that it's the govinfo.gov document that we also saw in the California State Library catalog. So what is govinfo.gov and why is it directing us from the catalog of government publications? So as a service of the United States Government Publishing Office, the govinfo.gov is free United States government information for all. This website is a service of GPO, and it's also a trustworthy digital repository, and it's been certified under ISO standards 16363 here, and it's subject to annual surveillance audits. So what kind of information is available on govinfo.gov? Yeah, you can find documents from the legislative branch, executive branch, executive agencies, and the judicial branch. So both current and historical information can be found through govinfo.gov. So we can search through basic search, an advanced, or a citation search. So let's see what we can do with a citation search. Let's say we're interested in maybe a congressional bill, maybe a House Bill 792. So we can select congressional bills. We can select the current Congress, the 119th. We can select the bill type, House bill, and then we can type in the bill number. So we can see that right here, House of Representatives bill in the current Congress, 792, is to direct the Secretary of the Interior to arrange for the carving of the figure of President Donald J. Trump on Mount Rushmore National Memorial. You can see that there's only been one version of the bill, just as it is introduced. So the citation search can be a great method of finding exactly what you're looking for. As a side note, a great majority of bills do not make it out of committee. Enacted legislation can be as little as a few percent out of all introduced bills. So we can also take a look at congress.gov. We can also do the same search here, 792 in the current Congress, and we can see that it is this bill right here. The nice thing about congress.gov is that we can get alerts if we're interested in a piece of legislation, which will alert us to any updates or actions or changes to the bill text, co-sponsors, or summaries. So it's not just current information that's available on government websites. Let's take a look at a non-governmental website really quickly. HathiTrust.org is a not-for-profit collaborative of academic and research libraries that is now preserving 18+ million digitized items in their collection. Everyone is able to read public domain and open access titles as well as search the full text collection. One of their featured collections is the United States Federal Government Collection, which has over 990,000 documents. So I'm going to scroll down to U.S. federal documents. So I'm going to search for, let's say War Road Relocation Authority. So my search in quotation is searching this exact phrase in these 990,000+ documents. So let's say this first one is interesting, but as a note, in most cases, copyright protection is not available for any work of the United States government. That is because tax dollars are used, and therefore you, the people, own the copyright of these federal government documents. Although there are always exceptions to the rule, in most cases, copyright protection is not available for these works. So we're taking a look at this first document. We're selecting a full view. We can take a look at searching within this document. So I'm interested in Los Angeles. And I can see that on, page 11 of this document, there was an evacuee property officer stationed in Los Angeles during World War II. Unfortunately, Japanese American incarceration took place in the United States from 1942 to 1946. But we do have a government that can be held accountable because information has been made public. Informed citizens are vital to the functioning of a democratic society. If you're interested more about this topic, you can watch a recording from last year with the National Park Service about incarceration at Tule Lake, California. Now moving on from HathiTrust. Although a great non-governmental resource, there can also be other federal sites and federal databases that can be used to find specific data or resources. So let's take a look at science.gov right now. Science.gov is a federated search and a search tool for finding scientific and technical information and resources across top United States federal agencies, such as the Department of Agriculture, Energy, Interior, NASA, etc. It is a federated search, meaning that a single query is sent to multiple data sources from a single search interface. Therefore, if I wanted to review scientific literature about the San Francisco Bay Estuary, I could type that term in there. So you can see that results are being returned from the EPA Science Inventory, PubAg, PubMed, some other sources. You can also click here and see what websites are being searched by this federated search. Also a nice component of this website is the visual search right here. So if you're, have a different learning method, you can take a look at that visual search and say that you're maybe, interested in water and fish. And we can select that, and you're interested in toxicity. So it will filter your results within the San Francisco Bay Estuary to those subjects within there. So this is a great resource if you want to find scientific information across a great span of federal government agencies. So let us say my search returned good results, but I want to find some data sets that I can use for my research. For federal data sets, you can visit data.gov, which is home to the United States government's open data. Right now, there are over 307,000 data sets in here. In 2019, the process of maintaining a central catalog of federal agency data sets was made a statutory mandate under the Open Government Data Act. So federal agencies are required by statute to create and maintain comprehensive metadata inventories to be harvested by a central federal catalog. So for example, let's do a search for civil rights in data.gov. And it looks like we're returning over 280 results, with many of these from the Department of Education. So the data sets are not just limited to federal agencies. We can click on organizations, and we can type in the state of California. And we can see that we're also a contributor here with over 3,800 data sets. Also, the state of California has its own open data portal at data.ca.gov if you're interested. Of course, federal websites and resources are expansive, and we cannot cover all of them in the time we have allotted today. So how about we take a look at one final resource from the Department of Justice, the National Criminal Justice Reference Service. So let's type that in. And let's say a patron is interested in finding a document that they asked us about missing American Indian and Alaska Native persons. It has an NCJ accession number 306616. Unfortunately, it looks like the site has been removed temporarily. We've been given a notice from the Department of Justice. They are currently reviewing their websites and materials in accordance with the recent executive orders and related guidance. So I We really want to help this patron, but it looks like we're not going to be able to do so. If the site did work, it would tell you that the virtual library hosts a collection of over 235,000 information resources and documents on criminal justice subjects. So this virtual library contains documents from the 1970s to the current day. For many of these historical documents, the California State Library has these in print or microfiche. But even a temporary interruption in service is affecting research. This is one example of many sites or resources that have been affected. Luckily, the California State Library is a federal depository library and is the regional, and we have selected all documents for distribution. But being lucky is not the same as being proactive. We use a myriad of sources to help you, but we use this database to help us search our microfiche and print collection as well. We would really like to help this patron find this document about missing American Indian and Alaskan Native persons. So, in order to help our patron, I'm going to hand you over to my colleague, Emily Mackinson, to talk about some of the resources you can use to view websites that may have been changed or been removed.
Thank you, Bradley. Yes, so one big benefit of the internet is that information can be easily added or updated as needed. Unfortunately, this also means that information can just as easily be lost when pages are modified, moved, or deleted. You may have heard or read some news stories recently about pages on government websites being modified or removed according to guidelines from the new presidential administration. And while it is not uncommon for government websites to be updated between administrations, some have expressed concerns about the volume and types of information being removed and the loss of data previously available to the public. Maybe you are someone who uses federally collected data for your job and are worried about accessing this data in the future. Or maybe you recall reading something about a federal program on a government website and can no longer find that information. Perhaps you are curious to see how certain websites or pages have changed over the years. So how can we access information that has been changed or deleted from a website? One way is to use the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine. So I'm going to have a very quick poll here. Very quick. I just want to know how many of you have heard of the Wayback Machine or have used the Wayback Machine to view an archived web page before. Please select an answer while I very briefly talk about the Internet Archive. So the Internet Archive is a nonprofit organization that archives and hosts digital or digitized media online for free public access. The Internet Archive has been archiving web pages since it was founded in 1996, and in 2001, they made those web captures public and launched the Wayback Machine as a tool to help people explore these archived web pages. Okay, looks like we've got most our answers in, so I'm going to end the poll and share those results. All right, so it looks like a lot of you have used the Wayback Machine before, but you'd like to know a little bit more about it. A few of you use it all the time, and looks like 28% of you have never heard of it before, so hopefully this will be a great resource for you to learn about today. Okay, just a second here while I switch over to, oops, stop sharing. Switch over to the browser, share. Okay, and I'm going to highlight my cursor. All right. Okay, so here we are on the Internet Archive's homepage, archive.org. Right at the top center, we have a quick search bar for the Wayback Machine, but you can also click on the logo to get to the main page for the Wayback Machine, web.archive.org. If you already know the website or webpage you are interested in exploring with the Wayback Machine, the simplest way to start is to open that page or site in another tab, copy the URL, and paste it here in the search bar. We are going to use this example of the National Park Service's page for the Stonewall National Monument. This is what the page looks like today, April 3rd, 2025. You may have heard some news reports a month or so ago about the National Park Service removing words like transgender and queer from this page in compliance with a new presidential executive order. And we want to see what the page looked like before those changes and exactly what changes were made. So I'm going to copy this URL, bring it over here to the Wayback Machine and paste, and here we go. So when we search this URL, the first thing we see is a calendar of all the times this page has been archived, including past years. We can click on a date. We can click on a date and capture in the past, or a year at the top to see what this page looked like on a random day in the past. So it does take a little bit to load, so I'm going to pop over to where I already have it loaded. Here is what the page looked like on February 12th, 2021. Now we can navigate to a different date by using these arrows at the top to go to a different date, month, or year, or we can scroll through these captures here to select another random date. We can also return to the main results by clicking on the number of captures. Here on the main search results page, we see a few other tabs at the top here. We are currently looking at the calendar of captures. The Collections tab shows data on which collections or projects are actively creating captures or submitting these pages for archiving. Next, we have the Changes tab, which allows you to compare two different captures of the same page side by side. So news sources started reporting about the changes to the Stonewall Monument page on or around February 13th or 14th of this year. So let's take a look and see if we can see when these changes were made and exactly what was edited. I'm going to select this capture from February 13th, 2025, earlier in the day. And I can see from this slight color variation that there were some changes made between this first capture early in the day and the second capture. I'm going to select that one as well and hit compare. And I already have it loaded up here. So here we can see a comparison of those two captures side by side. We can see that the main photo has been changed, and some of the language here has been changed to remove the word transgender and to change the LGBTQ+ to LGB. Interestingly, we can see here that the word queer still appears on this capture from February 13th, but we know from news reports that it was later removed. So let's take a look if we go and we select the next available capture on February 14th. So here we are with that first capture on February 13th and a capture on February 14th. And we can see that now that word queer has also been removed. And finally, here we have side by side what the website looked like on February 13th before any changes, and the most recent capture on Monday, March 31st. So as you can see, this tool can be very handy for tracking small or big changes to a website over time and comparing two versions of the website. Now for this example, we already knew the page that we wanted to look at, and the page is still active. So it was easy to bring up the archived captures using the existing URL. However, sometimes a URL may have changed or the website is no longer available. Maybe a page was moved or deleted and you can't remember the URL. Let's take a look at another example. I am remembering looking at the congressional budget justifications on the US Aid website a few months ago, but I don't remember the exact URL. Unfortunately, right now, if you go to usa.gov, we only see this notice about staff being placed on administrative leave. There is no way to navigate to other parts of the site that were previously available. Fortunately, I can search that URL in the Wayback machine and bring up an archived version of the web page from January 1st of this year. And from there, I can navigate using the menus to find what I'm looking for. Oh, here we go, budget justifications. So this is another way that you can use the Wayback Machine. Now, you can also do a keyword search in the Wayback Machine. However, because it is searching over 928 billion web pages, unless your search term is very specific and unique, you may have to sift through many pages of results. One of the most basic ways to filter a keyword search is to select a specific collection to search. Let's go down here to the bottom of the main search page where it says Selected Collections. These collections are groupings of archived web pages on specific topics or for a specific purpose. So for example, the End of Term Archive Project has been preserving government websites at the end of each presidential term starting in 2008. Here we have the End of Term Archive for 2024. Taking just a second to load. Well, let's see. Give it just another second. Well, it seems to be a little slow right now, but if it did load and you entered a search term such as health and Ukraine and filtered in the end of term archive, you would also be able to use additional filters that would appear on the side here that allow you to filter by specific domains, languages, and date ranges. And then there's also a little thing you can hover over that has some additional tips for searching, such as wildcards and that sort of thing. Hopefully it'll load and we can come back to it in a little bit. So another place you can search for more specialized collections of archived web pages is archiveit.org. Archiveit allows organizations and institutions to create their own collections of archived web pages. You can browse featured collections or search for a specific collection or name or organization to view their collections. For example, the California State Library has our own Archiveit page, managed by the wonderful librarians in our digital publications unit, with collections of archived California State Agency web pages. So the collections on Archiveit are another way to search and browse archived web pages within a certain subject, topic, or organization. I will also very briefly touch on a couple more web archive sites, and those are the National Archives and Records Administration, or NARA's Web Harvest, that has archive pages related to Congress, including archived websites for members of Congress, congressional committees, and more. And the Library of Congress Web Archive has collections of archived web pages on a variety of topics as well. So to wrap things up, this is still loading. Sorry about that. I guess it just doesn't want to cooperate today. But to wrap things up, archived web pages can archived sites can be a useful source of information. You can view pages as they appeared days, months, or years earlier. You can track changes to a website over time. You can look for information on pages that has been removed or deleted. You may even find links to PDFs or other documents that are no longer available or accessible on current versions of a website. What are some limitations of archived web pages? The biggest limitation is that not every web page is captured regularly, and some may not be captured at all. So if a web page was never saved, an archived version will not be available. Another limitation is that search boxes on archived web pages do not work. I'll show you an example. Oh, I guess not. Well, oh, there we go. Search budget. And it just says this archive, this URL is not available for specifically searching. And so finally, dynamic elements often cannot be archived correctly on web pages. So embedded videos, interactive elements, and password protected pages may not be accessible. So I hope this overview of the Wayback Machine and archived web pages has been helpful. If you have any additional questions, please let us know. Now, or you can email us later. I am now going to turn things back over to Bradley for a few more comments and the conclusion of this webinar.
Thank you, Emily. That was great. So we just went over some online resources for finding government information, including where to find new and current government documents, searching for older documents that may have been digitized, also information and data that could be available on government agency websites, and how you might be able to locate information that has been changed or removed from websites. As librarians, we use non-governmental websites such as Sothey Trust and archive.org on a daily basis and have been using the Wayback Machine for decades. So you've checked our catalog, you've checked the GPO catalog, you've checked out these online resources, and you're still having trouble finding documents or other government information. Sounds like it's time to reach out to a librarian archivist. So the federal government has produced millions of documents over the last couple hundred years, and not all of them have been digitized. And not all of the documents we have at the California State Library are searchable or in our catalog. However, our librarians are subject matter experts and search experts, and we can help you find the materials in our collection or give you advice for other librarians and archives to connect with. A quick note on the difference between libraries and archives. Libraries primarily collect documents and information that's been published that is created with the intent of public consumption. However, government agencies and the people working for them may also produce different types of documents that are not intended for public consumption, like internal memos, internal reports, data, etc. So you may be more likely to access these through archives, such as the National Archives or the California State Archives or other institutions. Even then, some documents may not be available due to the public because they contain confidential or sensitive information. You may submit a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request, or a Public Records Act request based on the provenance of the document. So you can contact or visit the California State Library, or if you're not located by us, you can check out your local public or academic libraries that are part of the Federal Depository Library Program. These libraries provide open access to their federal depository collections. But for published federal government information, or state or local, you can contact us here at the California State Library. We'll do our best to assist you or otherwise point you in the right direction. We are located here at 914 Capitol Mall, downtown Sacramento. Our reading room is open Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 4 p.m. Only state employees can check out our materials, but anyone can view our documents in our reading room. If you're not a state employee, you may be able to borrow the items through interlibrary loan. Or if we do not have something in our collection, you may be able to borrow it from another library through ILL, through us. You can also call, email, or submit a ref tracker or reference request. In fact, you're encouraged to submit a request before visiting the library. You can check your catalog, but please note that the catalog is constantly being added and revised for the better. So if you can't find what you're looking for yet, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. So we're about at an end here. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you learned a lot. We are now going to open it up for some questions. So if you have anything to ask, please put it in the Q&A box now if you have not already done so. Vanessa, did we have any questions that came in during the presentation?
Yes, we had actually quite a few questions. I think if you're going to put additional questions in the Q&A box, we may or may not be able to get to them just based on the variety of excellent questions that we received as the presentation was ongoing. And so I tried to kind of condense and categorize some of these questions. People asked a lot of similar themes in different ways. And so I will ask you and Emily some of these questions. And then if we can get through these in time, then we can maybe go back to the additional Q&A questions. And I also just wanted to reiterate, if you have any additional questions that we didn't answer today, you're always more than welcome to go to Ask a Librarian, as Bradley and Emily have spoken about, and we can help connect you with resources and help find you some answers. So really quickly, we did receive a lot of questions about whether this will be recorded. Can we send the links? I did try to answer that in the chat, but yes, the session is being recorded. Links will be shared by email to registered attendees, and it will also be posted to the California State Library's YouTube channel. I did provide the link to the YouTube channel as well. I did receive a question about whether or not we will provide a handout or cheat sheet with the names of the various archive resources. What do you think, Bradley, Emily? Is that something that we can add?
Yes, we can do that. Yeah, we'll send an email when we get the recording, so we'll send that out and that included with that email.
And another really quick question, and I think you did address it a bit, but is access to the California State Library for all state residents?
Yes, the California State Library is open to the public. Our main patrons are California state employees, California State Legislature, UC, CSU employees, but we are open to the public. You're welcome to come and do research in our reading rooms. We're here to help you. You may not be able to check out the material, but for almost everything else, we're here to help.
Fabulous. So I did flag a few questions to answer live, but I did kind of end up combining some of them. So one question, and we had several questions along these lines, and I know you covered some of this. So several attendees have asked about accessing content removed from federal websites like Health and Human Services, CDC. One also asked about whether the tools shared today can help retrieve data sets or reports that have since been taken down. What do you think?
Yes, so there is a lot going on right now. So let me pull up, let me just start sharing really quickly my screen here. Let me pull up our website. I will start sharing in just a second now.
Okay. And while you're doing that, I did have a question about how to identify a pearl.
Yeah, so a Perl, mostly used here if we're talking about yeah, California war claims, if you can see my screen right now. Yeah, Perl, yeah, is a permanent URL. So it'll just start with purl.fdlp.gov. So yeah, permanent URL of the Federal Depository Library Program on this federal site. So that's what a Perl is.
Okay.
So it helps redirect you to the right page if that site has changed over time. So they keep the federal government keeps, a spreadsheet that keeps track of all these. So not all libraries have to change it when it's updated. They can change it on their end.
Okay.
So,
And I did have an eagle-eyed person suggest that it's maybe a persistent URL as opposed to
yeah,
a permanent URL. So
yes.
can't resist an opportunity to correct you, Bradley.
Yeah. So we're talking about data sets. So we do have a web page on our site under government publications section. And then we have our research guides, and then we have our changes in federal government web pages and resources. So down here at the bottom, we have some examples of organizations or institutions that are preserving and archiving federal government digital resources. So we have the Harvard's like Dataverse, including federal data sets. So dataverse.harvard.edu. It's got quite a wide variety of data sets that they've been adding to recently. We also have the Data Rescue Project. It's a collaborative tool built to catalog existing public data rescue efforts. So you can take a look and see what sites that might have been maintained by other organizations. You can check the current efforts, through various organizations. So there are organizations out there that are capturing, archiving, and maintaining federal data sites. So we do have some of these listed here on our webpage. There's also, we can take Stanford's LOCKSS program is a program that captures everything on govinfo.gov in their own archive. And there are many libraries participating in that program in California. There's the preservation of electronic government information. So there are various organizations throughout the country that are participating in preserving and maintaining federal data sets right now.
Sure. Okay. And next, we had actually quite a few questions, quite a lot of interest in the Wayback machine and basically how to use it and its limitations. So some of the questions, and I'll kind of bundle them and we can talk about it big picture. So can it capture changes to documents like speech transcripts? Can linked pages be viewed? And can it restore access to databases that are no longer live? Basically, what are its capabilities and what are its limitations?
Yeah, so for some databases, it might be able to capture them depending on the format of the material. So if it's like a PDF or if it's like an Excel or a standard document that's on it, there's a good chance that it can capture that data. But if it's like a dynamic database that you need to, input search terms into and get a dynamic response, it might not capture it completely. So it really depends on the data itself. And I don't have any specific examples of that it might not capture. But yes, but links do work. I'm just going to take a look at the the CDC website from, just last month or something, and we can take a further look. So yeah, it's loading the site. So we can take a look at one of these links at random. So it does try to capture as many outlinks as possible, but it really depends on the site itself. Part of that end of term archive, there are seed lists that librarians and archivists work on submitting. And the nice thing about the Wayback Machine is, just you as a citizen scientist, you can use that Save Page Now feature. If you find a web page that you would like archived, you can actually submit it right there to be archived. There's also batch processes. If you have, thousands of web pages that you want to be archived, you can actually submit those to the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine in a batch process of over at 5,000 URLs at a time. It does take some time to process those and make them available, but yeah, there's some options there, but yeah, there are some drawbacks. We do have our digital publications unit that is working on archiving here, the California state government domain, and they might have additional answers to some of the questions you might have about limitations in terms of databases or outlinking. So yeah, feel free to ask us that further, or we can enter that into our reference tracking system and get back to you.
Perfect. And that's actually a perfect transition into the next series of questions about, folks express a lot of concern about what happens when public data, scientific research, for example, is removed from government websites. And they wanted to know what the California State Library is doing to help preserve that information, and also government publications, government information librarians, and information professionals in general.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we've started with that web page update. We're having this webinar today. We've actually submitted over 100,000 URLs of federal web pages to be archived by the Wayback Machine. Most of those have already been captured. I think out of the 110,000 we've submitted, over only around 7,000 are first captures. We've also been working with the government publishing office, and we have been submitting unreported documents to have them catalog them at the federal level. So we've done 50 unreported documents to be cataloged. We have more than 100 more waiting to be cataloged by a GPO. We looked a little bit at our Rosetta digital repository with our Born Digital, and also our documents that have been digitized in-house. So we've more than doubled our amount of documents in our permanent digital repository of federal documents. Right, we've digitized more than 50 historic documents. We're working with other government information librarians and libraries in the state of California and nationally. The American Library Association has their government documents roundtable. So yeah, we're doing various things to make sure that we capture the full amount of information so we can make this accessible for citizens now and in the future.
Perfect. Great answer. And I am double checking some of my other questions. Yes, we did have a few questions from engaged folks who wanted to know how they could help, how just kind of general public folks can help in these efforts.
Yeah, it's a group effort, but yeah, you as a citizen, of course, we looked at the Wayback machine, and this is a not profit organization. So if you're interested in something like that as an organization, you can donate or volunteer, but that's of course your choice. You can also volunteer for one of these data rescue projects. Or if you have technical knowledge or information, they are asking for volunteers. So there's various ways that you can help and assist your fellow information professionals in saving and preserving information for now and in the future. So, yeah, thank you.
Great. And then we did have a few kind of last minute questions about library card eligibility for checking out materials or accessing state library databases.
Yeah, if I'm gonna go to library.ca.gov. We have on our top blue banner here, get a library card. I'm going to click on that. So yeah, it does give you a prompt on who may apply for a California State Library card. So California state employees, state legislative staff, appointed state officials and board members, officials and employees of the state court, and faculty and staff at the UC and CSU system. Some limitations there, depending. Of course, resources are available in-house at the physical library branches, if you're interested in that. And we'll be glad to help you, research or with any kind of assistance you might need. But I would take a look at our library card application online. A nice thing is if you're a state employee and you have a ca.gov email address and you enter it in here, you'll pretty much automatically be granted your library card because that's the way this online database application works right now. So.
Okay, and I think we really only have time for one more question. And there's a question that just came in that is very interesting, and I wanted to pitch it to you too. Are archived government documents generally digitized completely, or will there be redactions prompting a need to retrieve them in print?
That's a good question. Usually, since we're a library, most of the information we get is, published for public consumption. But sometimes we do get things that have been published and been, redacted or were previously censored but most of that material probably would go to maybe like an archive. But it's true that we do have some of that material, but I'm not aware of anything recently regarding that. But right, things are always changing, and since we do encompass all, federal government information, yeah, depending on the document, it could depend.
Perfect. And we did have a last minute question about library card eligibility for retired or non-active state employees. And I did want to add that, if you're no longer a state employee, you generally do not qualify for a library card, but we still have a variety of ways that we can help answer your question, whether you come in person or use Ask a Librarian. There's no limitation on who can go to our website to ask a librarian. And there are, as Bradley just showed us, a tremendous amount of digitized resources that we can help connect you with. So don't let that stop you from using our Ask a Librarian service. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the both of you. Thank you so much for answering all these questions. And I apologize if I didn't make it to your particular question, but we received quite a few in here and they were all wonderful.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Let's see. Yeah, thank you all for attending. If you are ever in the area, please consider visiting the California State Library at 914 Capitol Mall in Sacramento, Monday through Friday from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us through our website or our email. And again, thank you so much for attending. Hope you have a great afternoon. We invite you to please complete a short survey that will pop up after you exit the webinar. This just lets us know what you're interested in for future webinars. And we hope to see you at a future California State Library program. All right, thank you so much.